Mr. Fan Man, bring me a dream. Boom, 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 boom. Fan Man Lighting, Jason is in the studio. Welcome back to the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Okay, so I want to just start off here, if I can. I want to go back because I'm really interested in people who are self-employed and business owners and the like. You've got a partner, is that right?
I do,
Two
yep.
of you? And who's he?
Jack Metcalf.
Jack Metcalf. And how did you two meet?
We actually met through Fan Man's original ownership. I worked for the original owners for 19 years. Jack actually had a couple former lives. As a Vietnam veteran, he's a decorated veteran from Vietnam. Then he was an air traffic controller.
Okay.
And until Reagan fired the air traffic controllers, Jack was actually the spokesman for that group when they were let go.
All right.
Really?
And then he went back to his degree and got into Budget Power. Worked his way up at Budget Power stores,
Sure.
which is an old,
Yeah.
kind of before the Home Depot and the other big box stores. Jack was the rebuyer for Budget Power for 20 years. When Budget Power went under, he ended up working with Fan Man, and that's when we expanded into home lighting.
All
Went
right.
from being just a ceiling fan store to selling lighting fixtures and the whole nine there. But Jack was a big part of that, bringing him into the Fan Man back then. When Fan Man went out of business in 2007, Jack and I were managing a store together and kind of teamed up. So we're kind of the best of both worlds with 50-some years experience.
So you bought the name from him essentially, and the
Yeah, we're like a franchise without a franchise.
Yeah.
They actually went under, so.
Right.
But we kind of earned the name for the years we worked there too.
All right. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in the Minneapolis area. Eden Prairie was my hometown.
So I'm always curious about what it is that makes somebody who has obviously the Fan Man went out of business, so you had to go get a job.
Right.
But to make the decision of, you could have very well gone and gotten a job
Right.
somewhere, but instead you said, no, I'm going to do this
Sure.
and go into business for myself and take the risk that I'm going to make it where the previous company didn't.
Right, and that's exactly where I was at, in 07. It was managing a store that went out of business, and something I love doing. I've been doing it 20 years at that point, almost 20 years at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I had asked my higher-ups, what their advice would be, where I should go.
Was that your wife?
Well, when I asked her, she said, "That's great." The first time, when I first asked my wife about buying the business, the response was absolutely not. There's no way.
That's usually where they come from. Don't they?
Right, and I
I
told Jack that if I think I'm a really good salesman, selling my wife on this will prove it. So that was our very beginning. But
Okay, so
That's
you had the
fun.
conversation with people that you trusted and
Mm-hmm.
and made the decision. How was that when it first opened? Talk about those early days.
well, it was kind of exhilarating at first. It's something you always dream of, running a business, to actually own it, and and we kind of looked at their mistakes in the past to make sure we don't do those kind of things. No one told us we were going into a recession. We bought in
Right.
October of 07. It was 2 months later
Oh, man.
that we officially announced we were in a recession, and then it was kind of game on since then. But,
Mm-hmm.
and even surviving that, it was always, everyone else is in the same boat. You can't really complain
Right.
to people. You kind of.
But broke is broke.
Broke is broke, yeah.
Right.
And when people aren't coming in.
So what was it that you did that the previous owners didn't do that made you successful where they aren't?
Well, some of the things we did were what they were doing, and that was, good customer service, and, word of mouth was always the biggest thing. We always thought, you just have to treat people nice and they come back to you. So that was our big focus in the early days. Even we weren't really sure what kind of advertising to do. We didn't have the dollars that the previous owner did for his advertising. And we looked at their mistakes. He was in an economy where the online was really booming, and he expanded too fast. So when the online prices started getting fixed, he was undercutting everyone forever, and but manufacturers got wise to that and started setting prices, and that really took him out. So we kind of knew there was a perfect storm of events. He had just expanded the company to 6 or to much larger stores. We had fewer stores than we did in the past, but much larger locations, and right. So all of those rents and the online sales that they were counting on didn't happen. So we also knew we needed a presence online, and we went after a niche in repairing ceiling fans. It's another thing that I specialize in. So we're kind of known nationally for a repair service for fans that other places don't want to really deal with. But after almost 30 years,
I was at church last week, and someone came up to me and said, "Boy, I really enjoyed your interview with that fan man. And I said, really? When was that? And he said, oh, it was a while ago. He said, I
You
listened
look
to it.
surprised.
I listened to it, and he said, it was such a good interview and all that. And he said, I went to Batteries Plus, and he said, there it was, right next door. So I went in, and he replaced every fan in his house using you.
Okay.
And he said his wife loved it so much because she could go in there, and you were not stuck with the blades. You could
Right.
you can pick and choose different blades and kind of customize it. Talk through that process of building a fan for your house.
Yeah, we always start with what room the fan's going into. It kind of gives us an idea of usage, and that will kind of narrow us down to a motor that we would suggest. And motors vary in fans, so that's really the most important thing. As far as customizing fans,
What would you say is the best motor?
Emerson's K55 motor. That's really what Casablanca made their name on.
Yeah.
Casa's one of the biggest names in fans, but they don't use the same motor anymore. And every manufacturer, even Emerson, has different quality motors. So, a name brand is a name brand. They've all got to have something competitive in their line too. So, but Emerson is still offering what we consider the best motor, and it's been proven for 30, 40 years now with that same motor.
Right.
And it's good because it lasts a long time or because it's quiet?
Both.
Or both?
Yeah,
Okay.
much larger bearings. They have attention to detail and like a rubberized flywheel to separate the blades from the motor. And then that brings us to blades. Some of their fans have over 50 different blade options. You
Right.
can hand carved, real wood, and ceiling fans are more like furniture these days. It's not just an appliance.
Talk about, you said you are known nationally for repairing fans and that. What about vintage fans, old fans that have been in, old restaurants or depots and those types of things? Tell us about those.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of the vintage fan repair. There's places that I can suggest for folks to go to if it's a truly vintage, 50,
What makes a
100-year-old.
vintage fan a vintage fan?
It's probably the older Hunter oil bath motors, and there's probably a
Running
niche.
off pulley systems.
Right. Well, there's even new fans that do that. A lot of this is nostalgia stuff, so they
Right.
kind of copy those things. But the older Casablancas are what we work on. That can be 30, 40 years old, but it's kind of testament to that motor that people are coming to us to repair a fan that's that old and not just going out and buying a new fan.
I had a fan, or I was in, I think it was Mexico or Aruba or something. I'm in a restaurant down there, and they have fans, not fans even, they got something mounted on the wall that had
Yeah.
going back and forth
Oh,
like
wow.
this with a deal like that. I thought, that is so cool.
Yeah, we actually sell that. It's called the Punka from Fanimation. That's
From
another
Fanimation.
one of the brands that we carry.
So, how are they good quality? Is that good?
Well, first thing we always caution on those is they make some sound. So
They do.
if it's going into a restaurant, that's great. But if it's in your living room,
Probably no good.
it's kind of a neat thing. But
Yeah. I
they
thought
make
it'd
a
be
lot of
great for the
noise.
In the pool room.
Right. Well, there you go.
Move back and forth. So when someone comes in, just kind of walk us through the process. You said you kind of build a fan depending on the room, depending on their styles. What do you have for them to look at and to demonstrate what you can do?
Well, we have probably 90 fans on display, so there's quite a few that we can show you. But many fans will come in several different colors or finishes. So we kind of start with that process and just get a feel for what people are gravitating towards. If there's a color
Basic
that jumps
shape and
out,
style.
yeah. And then we'll usually ask ceiling height, room size. All of that kind of gives me a working idea of where we should be, and then we'll kind of see what you're thinking. And
Is there any difference in the fan blade in terms of air movement?
No, the motor driving the blade is much more important. So even a 3-bladed fan can move more air than a 5-bladed fan. If the motor is bigger, that makes more sense. Bigger motors are better than
Faster,
smaller
just
motors.
because it's turning faster, or
Yeah, and it's not even necessarily the RPMs. You have a stronger motor, they can pitch the blade more.
okay,
So the RPMs might be confusing, and that's really confusing. What they've done with fans these days is comparing, electric usage versus airflow versus, there's a lot more logic involved in that. It's this motor is bigger than that motor, and
what about efficiency then? When you're getting into those types of things, motor size, fan pitch, draw, and all that. How
Yeah,
much?
well-
What's the average cost, or what's it cost? per
ceiling
pound?
fans are already one of the most efficient appliances. One of the first electric motors was made for a ceiling fan because it cools you off. But ceiling fans will draw maybe 100 watts or so on high speed, so it's really minimal, and you never run a fan on high speed. But now in the age of energy conservation, they've come out with even more efficient fans. The new DC motors can be 25, 30 watts on high speed, which is significantly different, but
Right.
we've already got an efficient appliance at 100 watts or less.
Tell us a little bit about just general lighting.
Yeah, home lighting has been a big expansion for us, but replacing bath lights, kitchen lights. We do new construction. We're a full-service lighting showroom these days, too.
So we can send, if you're doing getting a home ready for sale, which is what we're talking about here, to come into you and just say, look, I gotta get this place on the market, I need some basic lights to replace and change out in all the house.
Lighting is a first impression, even walking up the front door, changing out your outside light, if everything else in the neighborhood is the same, you're at the same price, that's all great, but you update a few light fixtures and you really make a difference.
All right, Jason the Fan Man Lighting, fanmanlighting.com,
Yes,
and you guys are in Apple Valley.
we are on Cedar, right across from the transit station.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
Give us a call, 612-627-8000. That number again, 612-627-8000. Or as always, log on to our website, hittnergroup.com.
Mr. Fan Man.